Okay, let's get started. It's my pleasure to introduce today's presenters, Christine Eco and Kaanan Lewis, experienced members of Pratt's African American department staff. Today, they will be highlighting how Sailor can be used to research African American history. Over to you, Christine.
Good afternoon, and thank you for attending our session, Bridging the Gap, a spotlight on African American resources using Sailor Research Databases. I am Kaanan Lewis, librarian in the African American Department here at Central Library at Enoch Pratt Free Library. I will be joined by my colleague Christine, and you will hear from her during her portion of the presentation. Now, let's get started. Here are the databases that we will cover during this session. We also will show you additional databases and resources that you can use with the sign up of a Pratt e-card. These resources are made available to you through the Maryland State Library Resources Center. To gain access to the Sailor resources, you may type in the URL link in your web browser. This link will bring you directly to the web page. Once here, you may access the databases via the Research Databases tab or the Services tab. We also know that the Sailor databases are also accessible through your county's library's web system. Once you select from one of the two options, you will then be directed to Sailor's list of databases webpage. For access, you can use the drop-down menu here and select your library system. And for the presentation here, I'm selecting the Enoch Pratt Free Library. And as you can see, the list of databases that Sailor provides from Gale Academic One File Select all the way until you come to Mingo Languages. And you have this access once you enter the URL link. So our first database that we will cover is Gale Academic One File Select. And with this resource, you can locate scholarly journals and select general interest titles in this index designed for student research and more. This database is for academic institutions, scholar, educators, and public libraries. And that we're searching today on the topic of African Americans. For academic institutions, you can collect, preserve, and organize rare content as part of their extensive collection of primary sources, archives, and educational databases. For school educators, it allows the development of essential curriculum-aligned content that empowers educators to solve curriculum challenges, keep students engaged in learning, and help curate virtual ebooks learning library. And for public librarians, it offers resources that can assist people at every stage of life to include workforce development, providing adult learning opportunities, contribute to small business success, and create focused programming topics that matter most. So if we're doing African American resources, we can start with the simple search here, and it also has the advanced search. Under your search for tools, we have the topic finder, which visualizes connections between search terms and topics. And we also have the subject guide search, and that searches subjects indexed to find articles tagged with specific subject terms. And then we also have public search, which you can search through the publication available in the Gale Academic One File Select. So being that we are doing topics on African American history, if you were to select this topic, you will have the ability to see that this yields to 404,566 academic journals, And when selecting your research topic, we do recommend that you click on the full text in peer-reviewed journals, which ensures that you will identify articles that are related in ways separate from the subject of the research. And it provides trusted forms of scientific communication, which filters out poor and invalid articles. So let's say that the group that you're doing the research for or conducting come across this article, which is Reflections on African American Experience, Social History, and the Resurgence of Conservatism in American Society. As we know, all articles has reputable resources, which includes the abstract and introduction methods, all the way to discussion and conclusions. We also have related subjects pertaining to this topic as well, and those categories are African Americans, historians, social history, and then we also have the tools options, which you can share to a drive, your email, download, and print with or without citations. Also, in this article, if you're doing a presentation for a group, we have the Get the Link, which is also known as the permalink, and that retrieves sources for future use. And of course, the citation, which you can find MLA 9th edition, APA 7th edition, and Chicago 17th edition. What's good also about this database provided by the Sailor databases is that the topic finder, and with the topic finder, is a tool that displays a visual representation of your results, which in this case, we're doing African Americans and also we're doing Black women in America. This shows the keywords that are found mostly often. So if we're here, it starts with that show most often and it decreases all the way until the paper, books, and browns. That's not so much of a hit under the African American topic. Also, you see Black women in America. We have African Americans, Black women, people, Darlene Clark, all the way to CEOs, dance, notes, and radios. And so, whether you're researching or teaching or doing an orientation for a group, this tool can help you quickly generate curated lists of documents on specific areas of your research project. For instruction, these lists can be integrated into a reading list to help users become familiar with using primary resources. Also, in the topic finder, say if you wanted to do a research on the Harlem Renaissance, it allows you also here to select a segment on the visualization that will provide links to articles, which you see located on your right-hand side under the results, in which our search term and second search terms appear. So we have the Harlem Renaissance here, and again, we did links in huge for the subtitle, and it shows the African Americans, of course, in Harlem Renaissance, poets, poems, and writings. That's all affiliated with the Harlem Renaissance. This will give the researcher an easy way to create curated lists on research topics that offers additional benefits of gathering links to include in a reading list. Our next database that we will cover, and is more similar to also the Gale General One File Select. This one is Gale General One File. And this database allows you to conduct a basic search on your topic, and you can browse by topic or select under browse by topic the history if you want to do a narrow, broad search. So again, just like the interface of the One File Select, we also have a simple search that you can conduct here, or you can browse by topic and select from one of the categories here. So for this session, we will look at and click on the history, and this creates topics that's related to African Americans. And as you can see highlighted, we have apartheid, the civil rights movement, Harlem Renaissance, and slavery. And for African American resources, if you click on the history tab, topics are already created for you. And as we can see, these topics will give the researcher a sense of topics to select from to begin their research process, especially if they need ideas on navigating various topics on and about African Americans. So just like the first database that we covered, One File Select and Gale, this too has similar interfaces. And just like the One File Select, they all share that interface. So again, it contains the abstract and related subjects list, and it contains your tool options as well. And so this database also allows you to, under the browse by topic, to view content by magazines, academic journals, books, news, images, and videos. Next, provided from the cell databases, we have Gale Books and Authors. This source serves as an advisory tool, and it includes browsing, reader likes, reviews, award winners, and theme books. And you can search by title, author, series, and keyword search. This resource is also a great source for compiling annotated bibliographies for your citation to books. So let's say you were interested in books by Zora Neale Hurston. The database provides her occupation. As we can see, she's a writer, her birth date and death date if the person is deceased. This particular person has 13 results of books for the researcher to look over. Other authors included that I did look over too were Toni Morrison, Octavia Butler, James Baldwin, Allison Walker, Lucille Clifton, Colson Whitehead, and Jasmine Ward, just to list a few. This database will assist you in your research or leisure reading journey. Once you locate a book or a list of books, you see that it provides the title and the year that the novel was published, which is 1937, and a synopsis of the material. It also provides the setting, time period, and main characters. And as I mentioned earlier, it gives you the reader likes, which assist you on other authors that write in a similar style or genre. Our next group of databases that we will cover is Gale and Context, and that ranges from the elementary, middle, all the way to the high school level. And so with elementary resources, browse the resources covering popular topics on a child's reading level. The key subjects include animals, arts, geography, health, literature, people, social studies, and technology. We have the middle level, which we can find reference content developed specifically for middle school students, and the high school level, where you can find resources with an emphasis on primary sources like newspapers. So our first resource is the Gale and Context Elementary. This is an amazing database, and it covers a broad range of elementary school topics in one accessible resource. You can select by the topic, the news, pictures, videos, and magazines. This database gives children a safe place to find answers to their questions. It allows them to practice research skills and explore interests inside and outside of the classroom. Also, it gives a trivia. So every time the page is visited, or if you refresh the page, a new trivia question will populate here. And so, but the many topics that relate to African Americans, whether it range from animals, arts, to health, for this session, we will click on people. And then once you click on people, you see that it brings a list to where you can learn about all kinds of people, past and present, from artists, authors, to athletes and scientists. And so under the people category, we will click on historic figures, and it gives an insight to famous people in history. And other people included in the historic figures are Ida B. Wells, Malcolm X, Ruby Bridges, and Dr. MLK, Martin Luther King Jr., to name a few. And so once you click on people under historic figures, it also provides you with a list from A to Z of historic people. And as you see, I have highlighted and starred African Americans under the historic figures page. Being that it's elementary, we will focus on today, and I have highlighted Ruby Bridges. And so once the student wants to do and learn more about Ruby Bridges, it gives an overview of her, how she was an activist and she was an African American. It provides the quick facts. It also provides nudes and also pictures of the person and biographies. So on the level of the elementary level, it gives the level that they're comfortable with, and once you do keep reading, if you select keep reading, it gives more about the person on Ruby Bridges or any person that they're selecting. When the person was born, you can see that the occupation, which was she was a civil rights activist. And in this article, it shows the early life and going to school. And if you scroll down more, it gives more information on the article about Ruby Bridges. So in close, this resource lets elementary school children gain comfort with research by delivering age-appropriate, reliable curriculum-related content covering a broad range of subjects. Okay, next we have Gale and Context Middle Level. And this is a nice and neat database because you can still, with the same interfaces, you can do a simple search or advanced search, or you can do a topic of interest. And this database is geared towards middle schoolers, and it combines reference content with age-appropriate videos, newspapers, magazines, primary sources, and so much more. This resource also begins with teaching standards, and it covers a wide range of topics and accommodates different learning styles and provides information. So today we will cover the topic of interest, and if you scroll either left or right, it will provide more topics of interest on different types of people. So today we can explore the Phyllis Weekly. If we click and explore this topic, just similar to the Gale and Context Elementary, it shows the same similar interface. So we have the overview of Phyllis Wheatley. Of course, we have the quick facts, where she was born. And being that this is the middle school level, it goes more in depth on the topic that you're searching. So on this page, you can see the reference. It has 26 hits, biography, primary sources, and also audio related topics and magazines. So by scrolling down, you will see the references that it starts with 26 on and about Phyllis Wheatley. The biography, we have 12 of those, and it's all about Phyllis Wheatley. And then if you click read more, same again, we have about the person, and then for the middle school level, it shows the article contents with the early life, the poetry, and later years in depth. Also, we have the related subjects, African American women that you will see that's related to Phyllis Wheatley, and then enslaved people, and of course, Phyllis Wheatley. More information and articles to explore. And this is just showing more. That's if you scroll down within the article, you have the options to review primary sources on and about Phyllis Wheatley, a letter from Phyllis Wheatley that she's written to George Washington dated 1775. We have the audio, also magazines about African American women that was put to a crude test and surpassed all expectations as it relates to this time period. And also Phyllis Wheatley's biography of a genius in bondage. And again, once you click on the article, you have information and insight on the entirety of Phyllis Wheatley from her early life, the poetry she's written, and years later in depth. Also, it shows you the words to know and a timeline from 1753 to 1784 when she passed away. Enclosed, this database allows the age group to explore, think outside of the box. It also challenges the young researcher and provides essential information on conducting a thorough and critical thought-out research paper. And next, in the lineup of Gale in Context resources for the high school level, we have this database, which you may conduct a keyword, of course, or basic keyword search here and select from topics of interest similar to Gale into Context middle school level. And this resource helps students develop critical thinking skills and information literacy skills. It provides 9 to 12K standards aligned with content to help with papers, projects, and presentations. So we could do a simple search, of course, advanced, or we can also do a topic of interest. If you scroll down and browse by topic, we have 187 different biographies. Some listed here was Emmett Till and Ida B. Wells, all the way from government, which are 93 articles. We have Science and Health, which had hits of 185. And we have World Cultures and Religions on African Americans, that's you see starred. We have History, of course, and then we also have Sports, which hits 27, and one of them being Jackie Robinson. So these resources and topics can be browsed through the Browse by Topics located here, or you can choose to browse all topics, which are 1,166 topics. And for this presentation, we can focus on, just like the other Gale resources, we have Emmett Till, and if you click Read More, it gives the overview of Emmett Till, the quick facts, when he was born and when he died. Others is Jackie Robinson, and then just a general topic on African Americans. For this session, we will focus on the Black arts movement. And then if you click, of course, the explore this topic, it brings you to the article of the Black arts movement, and it tells you about it. And also on this page, you see the feature contents, reference news, also the plot summary, images of the Black arts movement, and magazines. And this right here shows you more that's on the page. So you have the feature content and reference. We also have images that were doing the Black arts movement. We have Nikki. And then we also have the news. It's the time to open up the canon of classics. And enclosed, this resource allows for high school students to explore the different topics related on and about African Americans. It gives the researcher the insight on topics that goes beyond the surface of knowledge and to assist with a deeper understanding of origin and history. Next, we will talk about oral history, and we will turn it over to Christine.
Before I jump into the ins and outs of Heritage Quest, I want to make sure you understand the importance of conducting oral histories and genealogy. Oral histories have been defined as the collection of memories and reflections on topics of historical significance. For our purposes, I would simplify that and say you're just trying to find out about someone's life experiences. You should interview elderly relatives and those who are likely to succumb to illness as soon as possible. The point is that people contain information that will be lost once they pass away. Be patient and do not write off relatives who seem not to know much, because you will find that once you begin asking them about their own life, that useful information is likely to come up. Be patient, because you may be asking about things they haven't thought about in many years, and they may need time for their memories to kick in. After you've conducted your oral histories, the next step in the genealogical process is to begin reviewing family records. Search any place that you think might turn up a record that documents the life of your ancestors. Leave no suitcase, trunk, attic, basement, bookcase, or box unsearched. After these steps, then you are best prepared to make use of search and databases such as Heritage Quest. Next slide. This is the landing page of the database Heritage Quest Online. It gives you a little bit of an idea of what is offered, but if you click on the green Begin Searching button, more options will be offered. Next slide. This is what is displayed as a result of clicking on that green button. First, I'm going to begin by talking about the census collection, which is featured at the top left. Next slide. You can also browse by location to find census records. However, this form allows you to keyword search using inputs like your ancestor's name, birth and death dates, where they lived, when they were married, and locations these events took place, etc. You can even add family members to help narrow down the results. Next slide. Heritage Quest is most useful for its collection of census records. The U.S. Census has been taken every 10 years beginning in 1790, but only heads of household were listed through 1840. The 1850 census is the first one that is really information-rich from the genealogist's perspective. For the first time, the population schedule lists the names of everyone in the household. In addition, the enumerator was instructed to record each person's age, sex, race, color, whether white, black, or mulatto, professional occupation of males over the age of 15, value of real estate owned, place of birth, whether married within the year, whether they attended school within the year, whether able to read and write if over 20 years old, and whether deaf, dumb, blind, insane, idiotic, pauper, or a convict. From 1880 and forward, each person's relationship to the head of household is included. Are their marriage status, whether the person was sick or disabled, and birthplace for each person and his or her parents. Several changes occurred with the 1900 census, including number of years married for mothers, the number of children born, the number living. For immigrants, year of arrival in the United States, and the number of years in the United States and whether naturalized, whether one's house was owned or rented, and whether it was mortgaged. Interestingly, only in the year 1900 are both the month and the year of the birth date included. Most of the 1890 census was burned in a fire in 1921 at the Commerce Department in Washington, D.C. Only a few fragments of the full census remain. For instance, a separate schedule for Union veterans and widows did survive. Alphabetically, the states from Alabama through Kansas did not survive, but part of Kentucky through the rest of the alphabet did. African Americans who served in the Civil War may be found on the schedules if they were living in those states. Information includes rank, regiment, enlistment, and discharge information and length of service. There's also space for information on a disability due to service. A number of states and territories took censuses in years when a federal census was not offered, although many states were not consistent. Not all records have survived. Those records that are available for the states that took their own censuses can be found at the respective state archives or state library. Many are also on microfilm or have been digitized. Research the state where your ancestors lived to see if there was a state census during the time they lived there. In Maryland, there was a census in 1832 that was meant to support the goal of resettling recently freed slaves and other free Blacks in Liberia. These records were taken on the county level, and their current location is split between the Maryland State Archives and the Maryland Center for History and Culture, formerly known as the Maryland Historical Society. Keep in mind when searching the census records that you're supposed to research beginning with the most recent or known information to you and build upon it as you go back each generation. Therefore, you need to start with the 1950 census, the latest one available. They are only released 72 years after they were taken for privacy's sake. Next slide. It is worth your time to check different resources that offer the census because transcription errors may cause your ancestor to come up on one website and not the other. Along the same lines, always take the opportunity to look at the original record when it is available. Furthermore, you have to be creative with your spelling because record takers likely were. A lot of times names were recorded by how they sounded, so you may find records of your family under several variations of spelling. Also, be open to the fact that your ancestor may have gone by a nickname, even for official forms such as the census. So looking up popular nicknames of the time for certain names may be helpful. For example, my great-great-grandmother's name was Lida. However, she can be found under the name Lottie in some records. Next slide. The 1850 and 1860 slave schedules that are part of the federal census provide the names of enslavers in a locality and the age, sex, and color of enslaved individuals. Looking for enslavers who lived near where a formerly enslaved person lived in 1870, or enslavers who owned enslaved individuals whose descriptions match those of individuals for whom you are searching, may provide clues as to who the former enslaver was. Next slide. Part of the U.S. federal censuses from 1850 to 1880 included a mortality schedule enumerating the individuals who died in the previous year. Because each of the censuses from 1850 to 1880 begin on June 1st, previous year refers to the 12 months preceding June 1st, or June 1st of the previous year to May 31st. The mortality schedules are unique in that they mention slaves by name. Next slide. City directories are basically an alphabetical listing of names with addresses and phone numbers. You can generally identify if you're looking at an entry on your ancestor by seeing who's listed as their spouse. Keep in mind, African Americans are found in a separate section on some older ones or have an asterisk present or other notation to point out their race. That you are able to keyword search these city directories makes them a good substitute for the years when the census is not available. FYI, the Enoch Pratt Free Libraries Maryland Department has print ones beyond the ones that I think are offered in Heritage Quest. Next slide. Another feature of Heritage Quest is Find a Grave. This database contains an index to cemetery and burial details posted on Find a Grave from the United States. The records are dated between the 1600s and the present. Find a Grave provides users a virtual cemetery experience with images of grave markers from around the world, photos, biographies, and other details uploaded by volunteers. You may find obituaries and links to other family members included as well. FYI, it is worth making a trip to cemeteries to take a look at tombstones because they can include maiden names, birth and death dates, relationships, towns of origin, military service, and religious affiliation, all of which can lead to breakthroughs in your research. Be sure to check with the cemetery office to see what they will tell you if they will tell you if other family members are in the plot who are not listed on the tombstone or are perhaps in a grave nearby. The cemetery office often has additional details not found on the tombstone. Next slide. Additionally, Heritage Quest offers the Social Security Death Index, which contains names, birth dates, death dates, Social Security numbers, and other useful information of those card holders whose deaths have been reported to them. Next slide. This is the only resource I'm going to talk about that has a cost attached to it, but because it offers the maiden name, I just think it's so valuable to know of its existence. As the example picture shows, the genealogical value of the Social Security application also includes showing the individual's name, signature, birth date and place, parents' names, including the mother's maiden name, and employment information at the time of application. If you find a Social Security card or the person was in the workforce after the Social Security program began in 1935, it is worth checking to see if they had a Social Security application you can obtain. Unfortunately, the traditional jobs of African Americans, such as farmer, domestic worker, and federal employee, were not covered by the original Social Security Act. It was, however, amended in 1951 to cover these occupations. You can request the Social Security application of a deceased individual using the Freedom of Information Act's website. You may need to provide proof of the person's death if the person would be younger than 120 if they were alive. Unless you have written consent from the number holder, you have to wait until they would have been 100 and provide proof of death. At the point that the person would have been 120, proof of death is no longer needed. The one pictured is of my great-great-grandfather. Next slide. Another feature in Heritage Quest is the U.S. Public Records Index, which contains more than 400 million public records of individuals who lived in the United States between 1950 and 1993. Although the original information is available to the public by contacting the appropriate agency, this searchable database simplifies the process. Individuals under the age of 18 are not included in this index. This index, especially when combined with city directories, is a great resource for confirming locality and family relationships. The information in this database may include the following: name, age, birth information, address, resident, telephone number, etc. The information in the U.S. Public Records Index was compiled from a variety of public records. The various types of records used to create this index include telephone directories, marketing lists, postal change of address forms, public record filings, directory assistant records, and property and land records. Next slide. Among the types of military records available through Heritage Quest Online, it seems the Revolutionary War era pension and bounty land warrant application files are the most prized. Next slide. In the years of and following the Revolutionary War, the federal government provided three main types of pensions for servicemen: disability or invalid pensions, invalid pensions for soldiers physically disabled in the line of duty, service pensions awarded on the basis of time served, and widows' pensions for women who lost husbands during the war or whose husbands met specific service requirements. The files can contain a wide variety of records submitted to support an application. Information of genealogical interest includes the application itself, which can provide the soldier's name, rank, unit, time of service, age, date of birth, residence, and sometimes birthplace. A widow's application may also include her maiden name and date of place of her husband's death. Application by heirs will typically indicate ages and residences. Additionally, files might contain affidavits, service records, records of commissions and discharges, wills, receipts, diaries, or pages from family Bible records, military orders or muster rolls, newspaper clippings, letters, marriage certificates, account books, and even one book of contemporary lyrics. A November 1800 fire apparently destroyed Revolutionary War pensions and bounty land warrant applications and papers related to them submitted before that date. Some files thus contain cards noting that further papers are not available. Next slide. As an example, we're going to look quite briefly at the files on Cato Green, who was captured in Guinea, Africa, and sold into slavery in Rhode Island. He fought in the Revolutionary War to obtain his freedom. Green's discharge papers record that he served in Rhode Island regiments for 5 years and was discharged from the Continental Army in 1783 by General George Washington. Green died in 1826 at the age of 86. Next slide. These appear to be honorable discharge papers. Next slide. This is more information on that person, Cato Green. Next slide. And this final document includes a schedule of property and income for him. Next slide. Next is the collection of family and local history books. On the left is the landing screen, but if you choose publications, what will appear there is what's on the right. I like that option for our purposes because it allows you to search the term African Americans. Next slide. One of the books that comes back in that search on African Americans is the book Men of Maryland, which is a biographical collection. I just posted the front piece and the one of the biographies as an example. Next slide. So Heritage Quest Online also has will and probates. These records created after an individual's death often exist in time periods when birth, marriage, and death records are unavailable and contain personal details unlike any other record. What are probate records? When a person dies, a variety of records are created as the court deals with the distribution of the deceased estate. The term probate records broadly covers all the records produced by state laws, although strictly speaking, probate applies only when there is a will. Whether the deceased individual left only some personal property or large estate, it's likely that you'll find records that tell you names of family members, lists of personal possessions, and information about property and residences. Unlike other types of records, probates are usually made up of multiple loose papers gathered together in a packet. Here are some records you'll typically find in a probate packet. Wills. A will gives instructions on how an individual wants their estate distributed at the time of their death. It usually describes an individual's land and property and includes names of heirs, witnesses, and guardians. You may even find your ancestor's signature. Petitions. To begin the probate process, a petition must be filed with the court. Typically, this is done by one of the deceased individual's heirs. It often includes names, relationships, and residence of heirs. Inventories. A probate inventory lets you see the belongings that your ancestor actually owned and their worth. From the cost of their bed linens and number of cows they had to the deeply personal items like watches, photos, and shaving tools, you'll be able to form a more complete picture of your family member, their life, and how they compare to others in the community. Probate records relate to a deceased person's estate, whether that estate is testate through a will or intestate without a will. Whether the decedent left a large estate or just some personal property, there's a good chance that a probate file exists in a local court that oversaw distribution of property, the guardianship of a minor, or payment of debts. The contents of a probate file can vary from case to case, but certain details are found in most probates, most importantly, the names and residences of beneficiaries and their relationship to the decedent. An inventory of the estate assets can reveal personal details about the deceased occupation and lifestyle. There may also be references to debts, deeds, and other documents related to the settling of the estate. Some of the records in this collection are organized in packets. As you browse these images, included are a table of contents to help you navigate. If nothing is provided in the table of contents, that suggests the record consists of a single document. In general, estate and probate records are useful for identifying slaves on plantations. These records are also available at state archives. If the slaveholder left a will, he may have mentioned your ancestors by name. In some cases, wills granted slaves their freedom. If the slaveholder died intestate, meaning without a will, his estate probably had to be ruled on in probate courts, which would likely order an appraisal of his property. Slaves were often listed by name and value. Sometimes physical descriptions, ages, and sex were also included in the assessment. When the appraiser filed his report with the court, it was called a return. When reviewing court records, be sure to check all returns. Next slide. This is an example of a record that you can find in this database. You can see this particular one, that slaves are being distributed. Next slide. Also known as the Freedmen's Bank, the Freedmen's Savings and Trust Company is a good genealogical resource. Its records, particularly the register of signatures of depositors, sometimes show information such as birth date, birthplace, former owner, employer, occupation, residence, and relatives. The bank lasted from March 3rd, 1865 until June 29th, 1874. It was a bank for former Black slaves and servicemen that failed due to mismanagement in the Depression of 1873. Only some of the bank's depositors received a portion of the value for their accounts back after it failed. These records are available through Family Search and Heritage Quest in the National Archives. Next slide. We're running short on time, so I'm not going to go into what the Freedmen's Bureau offered. So next slide. Family Search is made available free by the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints on the internet. You will need to register for a free account to use it. It really rivals Ancestry and what it has to offer. So if it isn't already on your radar, I suggest you give it a try. Next slide. Manumission records are available. Next slide. Bills of sale are also available. Next slide. Runaway slave advertisements are also useful for genealogy. Next slide. And they're all available through the Legacy of Slavery in Maryland website. If you have ancestors from the state of Maryland, you're lucky because the last few type of documents I mentioned have been digitized through the Maryland State Archives website, the Legacy of Slavery in Maryland. Next slide. The database is keyword searchable, but I'm showing you the browse mode so that you can see the different collections the website offers. Next slide. Also of importance are slave narratives, and they're freely available through the Library of Congress's website. Next slide.
Okay, we have covered the sailors databases from Gale all the way up until Heritage Quest. These here, if you visit the library's Pratt Libraries webpage, are additional resources that you can use with the sign up of an e-card. And you will have those databases available to you once you sign up. And these are some of the additional resources accessible to you using the Pratt's e-card and that we will cover that includes African American resources. Okay. Here's how to register for the Pratt e-card. I have provided a direct link here to the e-card sign-up webpage. Once you fill out the library's e-card registration form, you will have immediate access in the use of the Pratt's resources. We also encourage, of course, to plan a visit into a Pratt location to get your physical library card as well. So once you visit the prattslibrary.org webpage, and if you want to get to the databases here that we provide, once you visit the Pratt's webpage, click on the Research tab here, and it will bring you to the Features Databases webpage. Here, you are able to research your family history, get help with your homework, read current newspapers, and more with the Pratt's e-cards or your Pratt card. So you'll click on the View Databases page, and it will bring you to the list of databases that we provide through the Enoch Pratt Library. Here again, you have the direct link to the databases. You have the options to access the databases by category. Here, you have age group and the A through Z listing. With your Pratt card, it will grant you access to the databases for all ages. You may search articles and documents in journals, newspapers, and online archives. Most of the databases are also available online from home, but please note some are only available at the Pratt Library. And here are some of the databases through the A through Z listing. I have starred the databases that we will try to cover during this session.
So I'm not going to go into what obituaries are, but next slide. I just wanted to mention that we have a lot of newspaper databases, and specifically one that is probably not offered at a lot of the other county locations is the Historical Black Newspaper Database. I've listed the types of coverage it offers, and there's really so much that can be said about it, but I'll go ahead and move on to the next slide. Chronicling Historic American Newspapers is available freely on the internet through the Library of Congress, so it's another good place to access newspapers. Next slide. Funeral programs, we collect them through the African American Department, and they're digitized through Digital Maryland. Next slide. So you're able to go on the internet and browse our collection. And if you want yours to be added to it, you're welcome to donate it to the African American Department. Next slide.
Okay, and another resource that's amazing that Pratt offers is the African American History Database. This resource covers more than 500 years of African American experience. It offers a fresh way to explore the full spectrum of African American history and culture. And this is a direct link to the African American History Database. On this page, we have the primary sources, which are sorted alphabetically, and we also have read articles on important topics on the topic centers to explore the subject. Here, users can start their investigation of a topic with a video or a slideshow. They can use the contact called on the home page to find an entryway into the database or dig deep into a subject or area through the topic center. You can read about key figures and events, examine famous speeches and other primary sources, and get content from in-depth timelines. And this shows you what the feature video and slideshows allows. It reinforces visual learning and it stimulates subject interest on African American topics. And we also enclose this database is like a friendly online encyclopedia of African American history. And you may find useful resources using this database related to African American history and achievements. Our last database that Pratt offers that relates to African American topics is Canopy, which we know is a streaming video service in which you can watch over 30,000 documentaries, classic and indie films. You can view materials from TV series to drama, history, and more. And the content in Canopy offers educational visual videos, that enrich, inspire, and entertain. And this shows just an example of an African American topic, which is the civil rights movement. And as you can see, we just introduced where you can have 2 tickets, which each month we give 30 tickets. But to watch this episode, it will take away from the 30 and it costs 2 tickets free of charge, of course. We thank you for joining us today in this session on Bridging the Gap with resources geared towards African Americans. We are here to provide services that you need, whether it's a program or you would like for us to do a collaboration and partnership. We are here. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Christine and Kaanan. Your presentation is wonderful and it has so much information in it. We don't have questions from the Q&A, but except we have been asked by several attendees, when will you have the slide deck available? I'm so impressed with the depth that you went into.
Yes, thank you so much. And yes, we will have the presentation. You can send us in the chat the emails for the participants, and we can have that ready and accessible for you this week at the earliest convenience and latest Friday.
Hi, Sarah and Kaanan. Sorry. I answered some of those questions in the chat, and we're going to be gathering all the information for the conference presenters, and then all the registries will be receiving a post-event email, which will include CEUs, a survey, as well as a link to the recordings and the session slides on slurk.info under conferences Sailor Symposium. So look out for that in the next 2 weeks, okay?
So thank you again, Christine and Kaanan, and thank you to Laura, who is doing our American Sign Language. And thank you to everyone who attended.
Thank you all for attending. We thank you so much.
I just wanted to add that the library offers a session on African American genealogy. So if you wanted to sign up your patron or sign up your library to have it presented to your patrons, that could be done. Because I didn't have the opportunity to share some information that was relevant to African Americans and genealogy that I wanted to share.
Thank you. Thank you for reminding people they can do that.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good time. We'll end the session now. Thanks.
All right. Thank you all.